What's happening, everybody? Justin, Bridgewater's finest on YouTube, Blockbuster_guy on Twitter, and welcome to week 15 of my weekly NFL Picks show for the 2014-2015 NFL season. It is a rainy, blowy, nasty day in Bridgewater, Nova Scotia this week, so what better thing to do? You can't go outside. Better stay inside, talk about some football. We're going to get into my week 14 results before we get into my picks for week 15, but before we do that, I have to give a special shout out to my nephew, Harry, for sending me a birthday card. It's my birthday on the 19th, turn the big 3-0. So my nephew sent me this birthday card that he made in school, I believe. Happy birthday, Uncle Justin. Have a great day from Haruki. And it is just the sweetest, it's my favorite piece of mail that I've ever received. Shout out to my 5-year-old nephew, Haruki. Thank you, buddy. I love this card. Thank you so much. Alright folks, week 14 results, going to start on the big three against the spread. I went 2-1 last week, which is a good week for me. I correctly told you to take New England -3.5, as well as Houston -5. Now I told you to take Indianapolis -4, that one did not work out in the Colts' favor, on the line anyways. So I only went 2-1, but that brings me back to 20-20-2 on the season. Brings me back to 500 on the big three against the spread, which is something that I really wanted to accomplish, and a little bit more on that later, but we're back up to 500, so we're definitely in the right direction. And I had a really good week overall against the spread as well. I went 9-6-1. I had one push last week. So 9-6-1 against the spread, and I'm up over 500 on my against the spread picks for the season. So that's a huge accomplishment for me, coming back from 6 or 7 picks, I believe, below 500 at its worst. 103, 101, and 4 against the spread on the season. Platinum, gold, silver, and bronze picks from week 14, I went 3-1. I correctly told you on the bronze pick to take Dallas to beat Chicago. Dallas wins that game 41-28. The Bears turn it on late. They scored 21 points, I believe, in the fourth quarter, but they turned the ball over twice. Tony Romo threw 3 touchdowns, and DeMarco Murray went crazy on the Bears. 41 all-purpose touches, 228 all-purpose yards, and a touchdown. Bears didn't have any answer for that. The silver pick, I told you to take Green Bay to beat Atlanta. It ended up being more of a shootout than most people thought it would. Green Bay wins that game 43-37. That score is not really indicative of how far apart this game was. Atlanta just really turned it on in the second half, especially in the fourth quarter. 4 second-half touchdown passes from Matt Ryan, so there you go there. It was too little too late against Aaron Rodgers at home, of course, putting up 43 points, and the Falcons just all-world bad defense. Like, that defense, if Atlanta wins that division and gets a home game, that defense is going to have to pray to God. Anybody that can move the ball is going to be able to move the ball on the Falcons. There's a question for you. Here's my first question, and it was brought up in the YouTube Prognosticators Facebook page. Who do you think is going to win that god-awful division? Is it going to be Atlanta? Is it going to be Carolina? Or is it going to be New Orleans? Sound off in the comments. My gold pick, my much-maligned gold pick, is the one that I missed again this week. San Francisco losing to Oakland. 24-13. This leaves us with nothing but questions about the 49ers. Has Colin Kaepernick completely fallen apart? Like, has he peaked already in just, what, his 4th season, 3rd season, whatever? Has he fallen apart? Is Jim Harbaugh going to be traded? Is it time to blow up the 49ers organization and start again from scratch? I want you to try to answer all those questions for me in the comment section. What would you do if you were in control of the San Francisco 49ers? And on the platinum pick, I told you to take Denver to beat Buffalo. That worked out. Buffalo scored a touchdown in garbage time, but Denver wins that game 24-17. No touchdowns for Manning. That was really bad for the fantasy playoffs. As a matter of fact, that cost me one of my fantasy playoff first-round matchups. But the underrated Broncos defense was, more than enough to fend off the Bills offense, which really is not very good. So Denver wins there. So I got my platinum, got my silver, got my bronze, missed my gold. gold. Platinum pick, I'm 12-2. Gold pick, I'm 7-7. Silver and bronze picks, I'm 9-5. I'm going to take this opportunity in the show to remind you that if you go to the description of the video, you're going to be able to find all of my results from week 14, all of my against the spread picks for week 15, information on joining the Bridgewater's Finest Pick'em Pool to try to get yourself a shout out here in the last couple of weeks of the season, as well as links to other high-quality NFL YouTube prognosticators who come on here every week and don't show birthday cards from their nephews. Thanks, buddy. All right, folks, let's get into it. Week 15 picks for you. Going to start with the big three against the spread. My number 3 play on the big three against the spread comes in the New Orleans at Chicago game. Chicago are 3-point dogs at home. As we mentioned earlier, Chicago lost last week against Dallas 41-28, a game that wasn't overly close, except for the fact that the Bears turned it on late. New Orleans also dropped their game last week, losing an embarrassing 41-10 to Carolina. I'm actually going to tell you to run with the road favorite here. I'm going to tell you to take New Orleans -3. New Orleans is not a great team away from New Orleans, but then again, they haven't been a great team in New Orleans this year either. They just haven't been a great team overall. But they've played a little better on the road than they've tended to in seasons past. It's going to be tough to go up to Chicago. It's going to be cold at Soldier Field in all likelihood. It is outdoors, so we got to see how Breeze and company react to that. The biggest reason I'm going to tell you to take New Orleans -3 here, Brandon Marshall is done for the season with that rib back injury that he had, and I think New Orleans is just going to be able to put up too much offensively. Chicago's defense has not played very well this year at all, so I'm going to tell you to take New Orleans -3, even though they're going to Chicago, even though the weather's not going to be in their favor. I think they've got enough to overcome Chicago, and Chicago hasn't played great at home either. So New Orleans -3 at Chicago is my number 3 play on the big three against the spread this week. My number 2 and number 1 plays both come from the NFC West, that very tight division. We're going to start with the number 2 play on the big three against the spread. Comes in the San Francisco at Seattle game. Seattle favored by a large 10.5 points at home. Against my better judgment, especially considering what I saw last week, I'm going to tell you to take San Francisco plus 10.5 here. Double-digit spreads I never like, even though it is Seattle at home and it's 13th man and different beast and, sorry, not 13th man, 12th man, whatever. It seems like they've got 13 guys on the field sometimes with how they play defensively. Seattle's defense is really turning it on. San Francisco's defense is no slouch. I mean, they've got playmakers on that defense, even though they're not really running at full capacity here. And it just seems like Kaepernick and company, they get up for these games against Seattle. I don't expect this to be a blowout. I think this is going to be an absolute dogfight because San Francisco is fighting for their lives right now. They're mathematically, I believe, they're still in there somewhere. So, I mean, they're dogfighting, and plus they kind of want to play a little bit of spoiler to Seattle, as they always do, because Seattle's just clinging to that wild card spot. So I just think 10.5 points is too many. I think San Francisco, if this is the only game for the rest of the season that San Francisco gets up for, they're going to get up for this one in a big bad way. So I'm going to tell you to take San Francisco plus 10.5 at Seattle as my number 2 play on the big three against the spread this week. And my top play on the big three against the spread this week comes in the Arizona at St. Louis game. St. Louis favored by 4.5 points at home, but I'm going to tell you to take the road dogs again. I'm going to tell you to take Arizona plus 4.5 in this game. St. Louis is coming off of back-to-back shutouts, first of Oakland, and then last week shutting out Washington 24-0. Seems like nobody's ever going to score in this Rams defense again. Arizona, on the other hand, last week won a 17-14 dogfight that they got down early. They came back, won that game, held on late. That was against Kansas City. That was a really, really good game to watch. Arizona, their record is a little bit deceiving because they've been pretty much, actually I think they still are perfect at home, which means if they're susceptible anywhere, they are susceptible on the road. St. Louis in their last 3 home games have played really, really well. That being said, they are only 3-3 at home. They played poorly at home early this season. So are they just riding a hot streak right now? When is that hot streak going to come to an end? Quite frankly, Arizona just has more talent basically across the board here. If you're going to give me 4.5 points, I'm going to, because Arizona could win this game outright, so I'm going to take those 4.5 points all day long. So for my top play on the big three against the spread, I'm going to tell you to take Arizona plus 4.5 at St. Louis. Now it's time for the Platinum, Gold, Silver, and Bronze picks for Week 15 in the NFL. Going to start with the Bronze pick, where we are 9-5 once again this season. My Bronze pick comes in the Houston Texans at Indianapolis Colts game. I'm obviously going to tell you to take the Colts here at home. Just think the Colts are a better team. Houston won last week, but it was against Jacksonville, so that barely counts. And Indianapolis had to come back on a very game Cleveland team last week to win that game by a single point. I think Indianapolis is hungry here. Luck has been a fumble machine in the last couple of weeks. Like, he's fumbling and losing fumbles just all over the place. I think he's got a bit of a chip on his shoulder right now. He wants to prove that that's not the player that he is an MVP caliber candidate. I think he's going to show it here, especially at home against Houston. So for the Bronze pick, I'm going to tell you to take Indianapolis to beat Houston in Indianapolis. My Silver pick, where I'm also 9-5 for Week 15, sees the Minnesota Vikings travel to Detroit for a division matchup against the Lions. The Lions doubled up the Bucs last week 34-17, while Minnesota managed to dispatch the Jets 30-24. That was my one push against the spread. I'm going to tell you to take Detroit at home here. I think Detroit's defense is more than capable of handling Minnesota's offense. I just think Detroit's going to be able to stretch the field here, especially given that they're at home. Calvin Johnson had a monster week last week, and they've got a lot more weapons than just him. Stafford playing fairly well here the last couple of weeks. I left Stafford on my bench fantasy-wise, and that's part of why I lost another fantasy matchup. Horrible lineup decisions. So Stafford's kind of picking it up, and Megatron's playing just Megatron football, so I think that's going to be enough here. For the Silver pick, I'm going to tell you to take Detroit to beat Minnesota in Detroit. For the Gold pick, where I am 7-7, I'm going to take the Miami Dolphins at New England game, and I'm going to tell you to go with New England, obviously. New England won in prime time on the road last week. Miami lost to Baltimore, so it's two teams going in different directions. And at home, New England just kind of dominates this matchup in recent memory. So New England all the way here for the Gold pick. Going to tell you to take the New England Patriots to beat Miami in New England. That's 3 straight home teams. Am I going to take the fourth one? You bet I am. The Platinum pick, where I am 12-2, sees the Jacksonville Jaguars travel to Baltimore to play the Ravens. Baltimore is not the killer team that they have been at home. They're 4-2 this year, which is not a bad home mark by any means, but the formula here is kind of win all your home games and go 50-50 on the road, and then you're 12-4 and you're basically guaranteed to get in the playoffs. But, you know, Baltimore hasn't quite been that juggernaut at home this year. That being said, they have still played very well, and it's more than enough to beat the Jags here. So Platinum pick, Baltimore at home to beat Jacksonville. Now it's time to take a look at the rest of my straight-up picks for Week 15 in the NFL. Here they come. That's the Week 15 show for you folks. Comments, hate, and love, you know where they go, in the comments section below. Make sure you answer those questions for me about the San Francisco 49ers, as well as who you think wins that NFC South division. It's time for the comment of the week. Only had like 2 comments on the video last week, so I didn't exactly have the deepest pool of comments to pick from. However, I did get a good one here from TJ Harmon. Last week I had asked you about whether it was time for the New York Giants to fire Tom Coughlin. TJ Harmon replied with this comment. It's been time for John Coughlin to go. After the season they had in 2012 and the dismal season they had in 2013, it's time for the Giants front office to send him packing for a college football head coach or one of these coordinators in the NFL today. So that's a good comment there from TJ. Maybe it is time for Tom Coughlin to go, and you never know. If the 49ers are shipping Harbaugh out of town, maybe the 49ers organization would be a good landing spot for Tom Coughlin if his time is done in New York. So there's the Week 15 show for you. Justin, Bridgewater's Finest on YouTube, Blockbuster_guy on Twitter. We will see you again next week for Week 16, only 3 weeks to go.